You, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of your ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're going to be busy for a minute.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon. On this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful, Neil. It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of...
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bruce Williams channel. I'm excited today, guys. I don't know if you can hear it. I have a smile on my face. I'm going to be talking about the Speedmaster, arguably the coolest watch in history with the most unbeatable and iconic history out of any watch on the market. It's just awesome. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Obviously, I'm a fan. Omega's my favorite brand at the moment. The Speedmaster is one of those watches that I feel like I always have to have a version of in the rotation at any given point. And I think a lot of you may agree with me. The Speedmaster is one of those watches that every watch enthusiast would like to try at some point in their collecting journey, whether it's a reduced or a Hesalite or a Sapphire sandwich or a gray side of the moon or a Tintin or an Alaska project, a Snoopy. I mean, there are so many versions out there. And I mean, for good reason. It's a great platform. It's a great watch. And I think this is really the bread and butter, the Hesalite and the Sapphire sandwich. And the one that I have is the Sapphire sandwich. That's my flavor. I like the scratch resistance. I like the profile of the crystal. And I really like seeing the movement. That's a huge draw for me because, you know, it's a classic mechanical movement that has been finished very beautifully with the warm tones here of the gilt in the inlay of the text with the, you know, the rubies that you can see, the rhodium plating, the brushing, the Geneva striping, the anglage, the perlage work. It is a very, very beautiful movement. And it helps, helps me feel connected with the watch. So again, I like the Sapphire sandwich, but there are a lot of great flavors out there. And I specifically want to talk about my experience with the Moonwatch, the pros of, you know, being an owner and wearing this on an everyday basis, and also the negative elements, the things that are not so great about the watch, because I almost feel like the negative aspects are, they might be more important than the positive aspects when you're considering purchasing a watch and answering that question, hey, is this worth the money? Would I be happy, you know, spending $6,000-$7,000 on a watch, to wear as a sport piece and not let it sit in the safe like a queen? So, okay, let's before I wax poetic, let's get to the dimensions here. 42.2 millimeters of diameter. So it's actually just a hair bigger or wider than the previous discontinued version of the, the Moonwatch, the 1861. The 1863, of which I've owned the 1863. I recently sold it. I did upgrade to this METAS certified version, but a lot of the changes come in the dimension. So 47.1 is the overall lug-to-lug length. It's actually 0.9 millimeters shorter than the 1863. And if you're wearing it on the bracelet, it's actually 5.7 millimeters shorter in the effective lug-to-lug dimension because of that protruding center link on the discontinued version. And that makes a huge difference on wrist with the comfort and with the wearability on smaller wrists. 13.4 is the overall height, so actually just a little bit thinner as well, 0.2 millimeters thinner in overall height, which is fairly negligible, but hey, every bit counts in my opinion when it comes to the thinness and how it wears and how elegant and refined it feels on wrist. And just for reference, my wrists are 7.25 inches in circumference. The big difference here is this massive taper on the bracelet. We have an entirely new bracelet in addition to the new case, the new function pushers, the new step dial, the new movement, the new box. Really everything about this watch has been redesigned and updated. This is a brand new watch. It's not just a new movement, new bracelet, couple little tweaks, dot over the 90, blah, blah, blah. No, it's entirely different, down to the font and the bezel. And again, the bracelet is probably the biggest noticeable element, just with how much it tapers, and the style here, the new clasp with the retro Omega logo in prominence, the grooves. I love this. This is so comfortable, and I like the fit better. It's more of a vintage feel. It has more flex, it has more give. It's a little bit lighter weight than the discontinued version, and I really like that. So I think this new update, you know, the movement alone is worth the upgrade, but the wearability is much improved. If you're going to wear this as a daily driver, which I definitely recommend doing, I have no problem in doing that. The fit, the comfort, I mean, that really aids a lot in this overall package. Now let's talk about the movement. This is the caliber 3861, so it's an evolution of that Lemania 1873 base. So visually, it's going to look very similar to the 1861 and 1863, but it's infinitely better when it comes to the specs. So we now have 26 jewels, and 4 of those jewels are just for the coaxial escapement that has been fitted onto this mechanical movement. We still have a 3 hertz beat frequency, but we now have the silicone hairspring, which I think is lovely. And this is a big deal, the variable inertia adjustment, which essentially are these small screws found in the oscillating balance. This is much better, much more sophisticated for the adjustment, as opposed to regulating pins that with shock can really change the frequency of your watch. So I like the variable inertia adjustment. I like the 50 hours of power reserve. I do like the hacking, which is something you won't get on an 1861 or 1863. But big draw for me is the COSC certification, the METAS certification. So this is going to be very accurate, very well dialed in a number of different positions. But the big thing is that 15,000 Gauss threshold of being anti-magnetic. That is huge. And to me, it really emphasizes the point that this is a tool watch. It's not meant to be a safe queen. You know, it's not a delicate instrument. This is a tool, man. This watch's grandfather was used by astronauts in low Earth orbit, on the way to the moon, on the surface of the moon. You know, a Speedmaster helped time that critical burn that Jack Swigert, the astronaut Jack Swigert, had to help do to get Apollo 13 back on the correct trajectory to hit the Earth at the right angle so that they could re-enter. I mean, this is a tool, and I like that. I like this new movement. Again, I think the movement alone is worth upgrading for, because it's a lot more practical as a daily driver. Now let's talk about the areas for improvement. I think I've been very, very positive, you know, in this first 8 minutes of the video. But what are those negative elements? I think there are a couple big missed opportunities and one step backward. Let's start with the missed opportunities. I would have liked to see a ceramic bezel. I know they re-profiled the font here. We have the dot over the 90. I don't really care about that so much. I would have liked to get extra scratch resistance and a high contrast material on a high wear area of the watch with the stepped bezel. So I think they could have done that. I know they've done that on other versions of the Speedmaster, and I think that would have been a nice thing. But the big one is in the clasp. I like this clasp, but we only have 2 micro adjustment positions. I know the bracelet has short links, and so it's easy to get a good fit, but man, I want that on the fly adjustability that Omega is so well known for. Like with this Seamaster, I love the glide, it's not the glide lock, that's what Rolex calls theirs, but I like this adjustability on the fly. The travel here is so practical, and Omega did not do it here on the Speedmaster, and so I've got to knock him down for that. I've got to ding him on that, because oh man, that was really a missed opportunity. But here's the biggest downgrade. It really has nothing to do with the watch itself. It's the box, it's the extras, It's the experience. The new box is tiny in comparison to that lovely and absolutely ridiculous big box presentation kit that came with the 1861 and 1863. And I missed that kit. I sold my Sapphire sandwich when I upgraded to this, and I'm tempted to rebuy that big box just for the box. You know, you had this huge box with the straps, you had the medallion, you had the loop, you had the Velcro, you know, astronaut band, you had an additional NATO, which, you know, Omega charges a pretty penny for that NATO. It's one of the more expensive NATOs on the market. You got a free one, you got a black one in that kit. You know, you really got a lot. You got a strap changing tool, you got the experience, and the Speedmaster is about buying into the experience, the history, the hype of being used by NASA and on the surface of the moon. I tried to kind of convey that in my entry, my opening, my intro to this video. And this new box, man, big downgrade from that original big box that came in the last generation. But other than that, I like the watch better. I think the watch is a more wearable watch. I like that applied logo that looks, you know, exactly like the applied logos of vintage references from the 60s. I love the step dial, again, paying tribute to those original Speedmaster references. I think the lume is infinitely better here on the new one with how they've cut into that step dial and deep filled it. So this is almost dive watch-esque. And when you compare the outgoing generation, that one was almost laughable in comparison to this new METAS Moonwatch. And I often give, you know, sport watches that are not divers a pass when it comes to chronographs or maybe GMTs or dressy pieces, field watches. I often give those watches a pass for having less than stellar low light luminescence, and I really shouldn't, because this watch is so satisfying in low light with the upgraded lume. Really, this watch is awesome. There's just a few little missed opportunities, and then that box, you know, is a huge downgrade. Overall, this watch is, I think, definitely worth the cost, and I'm happy to have it in rotation. And again, I always want to have a Speedmaster in the collection, whether it's a Dark Side of the Moon or a Hesselite or, you know, whatever it is. There are awesome models out there. I like the Sapphire sandwich, and I hope most of you watching this will get an opportunity to try a Speedy of your flavor at some point in your watch collecting journey if you haven't done so already. So let me know if you have any specific questions, if I can help answer any questions. I had to answer a ton of questions myself over the years on which Speedy to buy, which one to go for. Should I upgrade? Should I do this? Should I do that? I'd be happy to share my opinion if you have any questions. Thank you very much for watching today. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.